Faiz, could you please mute yourself? Anjali, could you please open your webcam so that we can start the meet?
Am I visible?
Yeah, you're completely visible and audible. Faiz, we are starting, okay? So, the only thing that stands between you and your dream is the will to try and the belief that is actually possible. It's a beautiful quote quoted by Joel Brown. So, with this quote, I would like to begin our talk show named Conversation with Consultants with episode 20 of a Guest Talk series. Good evening, everyone. I am Aditi Jain, Strategic Alliance Advisor of SK Associates and Group.
And I, Anjali Kumari, Compliance Manager of SK Associates and Group, and we both are your hosts for today's talk show. So, before we begin our talk show, let me briefly introduce SK Associates and Group. We are an ISO certified management consulting firm registered under MSMED Act 2006 with the Government of India. Our mission is to provide consulting services to student entrepreneurs globally, covering areas such as compliance, operation, marketing, research and development, human capital strategy and operation. Our passion lies in helping the aspiring entrepreneur building their dreams to life and contribute to global economic growth.
Entrepreneurship is a catalyst for change and innovation. It's a powerful force that can reshape industries, transform lives, and make the world a better place. We are committed to support student entrepreneurs on their journey, equipping them with the tools, knowledge, and network they need to succeed.
Now, before we begin our show, let's take a moment to introduce our guest for today. It's give us immense pleasure to welcome Dr. Soumyatanu Mukherjee, Associate Professor, Accelerate Delhi, to this special event. We are truly honored by your presence today, and we are thrilled to have you share this momentous occasion with us.
Thank, thank you very much for your kind introduction. And well, I am actually belonging from the world of academia. So, to be honest, I have never worked in an industry, but what I have is a wealth of experience of working at a different institution. And to be honest, actually, starting your PhD journey or starting your career or stepping in your career in the world of academia, it's I think that it's more or less similar of working on a startup because the PhD journey is full of uncertainty. There might be some ways because I can remember that when I first, uh, so I had a research proposal in mind when I applied for my PhD, and to be honest, when I was very satisfied with my research proposal. I had a discussion with a lot of professors in Calcutta University, in Indian Statistical Institute, and so on and so forth. And but when I submitted my research proposal for doctoral study at University of Nottingham, it was accepted. It was greatly accepted. I got the Economic and Social Research Council's doctoral fellowship from the UK SRC, and as well as I have also obtained the Vice Chancellor's Research Excellence Award for my thesis. However, the issue is that that proposal that I submitted and the thesis that I have actually pursued or actually completed, there are heaven and hell difference here and there. So effectively and essentially, we have changed it a lot of times. We have changed our courses a lot of times based on the data we have, the insights we are getting, the kind of research question that was more intriguing, perhaps, or perhaps more interesting to explore. Perhaps there is no guarantee that I will always get my desired result, because in research everything is exposed rather than ex ante. So you cannot start with a preconceived or ex ante notion uh, in starting your PhD career or PhD journey. And research is basically, the meaning of research is lying within this very word. It's research. So search and search again for each and every aspect. So as a result of that, what you typically find out that within this time, your whatever you thought before, that okay, you are doing this thing, or even whatever your supervisors may have recommended you before, that may or may not hold at the end. So as a result of that, I think that it's also a very uncertain journey. But at the end, when you are getting certain results, when you are completing your thesis after being grilled by the external and by the internal examiner for almost 4.5 hours, for me, it was the viva took 4.5 hours for me. So after you are grilled by the external for 4.5 hours or so, with the interjection of the internal assessor, then you will find that, and when actually you are getting the result that yes, you are successful, or your thesis is satisfactory, but there might be some minor corrections or something required or something like that, then you will feel that yes, it was worth, the effort was really, really, I think that it's worthwhile to work for. And to some extent, I got also some good results, because I could publish all my research chapters in very prestigious journals. And also, I have obtained the International Economic Research Annual Award from the Export Import Bank of India for my PhD thesis. And so it was satisfactory. It was a satisfactory journey, but it was full of uncertainties. So I think that those who are starting for, or dreaming for an entrepreneurship, because in Exelara we have also a program called IEV, Innovation, Entrepreneurship and Venture Capital. So I've seen that students are coming up with exciting ideas, beautiful ideas, wonderful things. The issue is that all these things, they might be looking uncertain ex ante, but the results will be better exposed. So to some extent, what I actually do in my research these days, that has also this kind of result, this kind of nature, this kind of very nature. So I also dealing with the decision under risk and uncertainty. So where everything is uncertain, ex ante, and exposed, the realization of all the random variables are taking place. So essentially, my academic career is basically based on all these things. Another interesting story I would like to narrate in this context. See, I belong to a family where actually my parents are doctor. So my parents has a belief that, well, and I am actually from basic science. So I had actually physics, chemistry, mathematics, and biology. Now up to my plus two level. So even my HS was on higher secondary exam. I am from the West Bengal board of secondary examination. So when I passed my board exam, then it was a natural choice for essentially most of the families during my time, that either your son or daughter will go for medical or engineering. So I appeared in the joint entrance. I had a very good score. I had rank all India rank of 1318 in the engineering, and I think in the medical it was within the first 500. But still, I declined actually all those offers, and I joined St. Xavier's College, Kolkata, to take my bachelor's in economics. And economics is completely an unknown territory for me, because I have never studied economics in my life before joining the undergraduate degree. So for my parents, they both of them are actually didn't have any idea about this subject or this area. So they were much insecure. To be honest, they were insecure actually till I because what happened that in the masters I ranked top from University of Calcutta. So I ranked second with the first class from my university. And but even after that, I didn't join actually the campusing. I didn't sit for campusing. I didn't sit for any job interview. So as a result of that, my parents got a bit, that insecure. They thought that, well, my life is full of uncertainty, so they have to secure some kind of bequest or something for me, because so that I can sustain my entire life. Now, now when actually I completed my PhD, right after my PhD, I got a job in TU Dresden, Germany, as a faculty. And then I returned to India. I got a job again in IIM Puripur as a professor. So when I joined IIM Puripur, I came back to India. Then my parents got relieved that yes, now my son, it seems that well, he is established, so he can take care of himself, he can take care of ourselves, he can take care of the family. So he is settled. So he is doing something, at least whatever he has done, he is making something out of it. So again, so as my point is that, well, there are a lot of things you will hear, that may discourage you at the very first instance, but take those things as encouragement, as a word of encouragement. Because if somebody does not believe you, that means that that should encourage you to do better at what you are planning to do, so that you can excel in that activity, and you can show the world that, see, that this is the very reason why I have chosen this path, not the path my parents or somebody else have chosen for me. So you take your own decision. Why you are taking your own decision? Because you know that you can do better in this unknown territory. And there is a sheer joy, there is a sheer pleasure if you can achieve something by walking through an unknown territory rather than a known territory. There is a, I just some days back I was watching this IPL, so I have seen that there is basically Mr. Virat Kohli. He's basically hearing in an advertisement that there is a quotation that bold नहीं खेलोगे तो कभी ना जान पाओगे, तुम क्या कर सकते हो. So I think that that is very interesting message. So I would definitely encourage everybody who are basically thinking of starting their, coming to the route of entrepreneurship. I think that that is something that you have to dream about. Don't go by a set path. Just traverse to some extent different way, and then actually you can judge yourself. It will be better test of your character. It will be a test of your ability. Okay. So, and your determination as well. So that is, I think, one generic message. And again,
Thank you for
PhD. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Thank you for sharing this message. I would like Anjali to please take forward and ask the question.
Yes, please.
So, sir, the first question for you is how can entrepreneur leverage economic principles to make better business decisions?
See, that economics is about decision making, right? So decision making under scarce resources. So when actually you are taking let's say that you are an entrepreneur, you are talking about making an investment in a project. Now the project has a certain risk component, right, inherent with it. So what you have to do, that you have to think about the potential return that you can leverage. So risk and return. So how you can minimize the risk and maximize the return. Okay, and that can maximize your payoff. So essentially, the idea is what I teach in the class is essentially in a two by two sense. Okay, so you see that what are the risks, what are the pros, and what are the cons. Okay, and then you weigh that how actually you can maximize the pro, which strategy you can adapt to maximize the pro and minimize the con. So that is where actually economics and the interfaces of strategy, the interface of marketing, behavioral science, and everything comes together. But economics is the basic building block of everything. Now, let's say that, for instance, if I am talking about a company, a company is trying to decide over that whether what should be my whether I should go for directly acquire certain assets of certain company located in a different foreign country or not. So there are a lot of things are in place. One is that the company's corporate governance practices. There are might be some your own the acquirers or the potential acquirers financial health, and also it also requires something else like the corporate social responsibility, the sustainability index, or how actually the company is doing on the CSR front, how the company is doing on the whether the company's environmental disclosure meets the required criteria or not. All these things actually take a very, very important role in determining the potential deal selection. Now, these things are essentially under the purview of decision making. So they come under the purview of economics. So although these are basically corporate finance topic, but these are basically under the purview of economics. This because it involves that how you are choosing your deal, or how you are, if you are choosing your deal as a risk management strategy, as a strategy to combat the potential uncertainties emanating from maybe the poor environmental practices of the host country or something like that, then it is essentially your economic decision, because you have to weigh that you have a limited resource, which is your financial health. So based on that, you have to think that what else you can do. So whether it is useful for you to go for acquisition so that you can monitor their corporate governance practices more closely, rather than you go for greenfield investment or joint venture, this kind of deals. So these are basically different, I would say that concepts pertaining to economics. And like there are issues like secondary price discrimination, there are issues like monopolistic competition, how the company will, so the entry exit of the firms and industries, these things, industrial organization, what we call in the economics literature, has huge implication in entrepreneurship. Actually, the list is too long, so it will take a very long time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Thank you
please.
for sharing it. So, can you highlight like what are the key indicators that entrepreneurs should monitor regularly?
So essentially, the key indicators that entrepreneurship is, any entrepreneur should monitor regularly, is that there are different frameworks. Okay, so when you are thinking about uh, the macro picture, in the macro context, there are things like the country's GDP growth rate, inflation, unemployment rate. Okay, the Phillips curve, how that is behaving a lot. Then also there are the issues like that how the current account, capital account balance, and all these things are there. Then within the territory of, let's say that in the industrial organization territory, you have to think about the there is something known as pestle framework. There is something known as Porter's hypothesis. So Porter has given some five forces that the Porter hypothesis comprises of different aspects like that there are different aspects like competition, the extent of competition, the market share, and you know that the index of the industrial competitiveness, and all these things are there. And in the Pestel five forces and the Pestel hypothesis is basically Pestel has suggested that the broad framework of identifying the ease of doing business in certain territory or in certain country. So all these things actually, these are all macro concepts. But what are the micro things you can look forward? You have to look into actually into the company's detailed balance sheet, the company's financial statement, because there you can get the information on accounting profit, economic profit. So there are certain differences between these two, accounting profit and economic profit, because economic profit talks about the opportunity cost, that talks about the other aspects that are basically not dealt within the accounting, within the accountant's decision. So accounting profit, economic profit, then there are export import, then there are the company's sustainability score, and all these things are, I think, under should be under the purview of the entrepreneur.
Thank you, sir. One more question, sir. How can understanding supply and demand dynamic help in setting price of for product and services?
Basically, to set the price, the Walrasian principle says that the supply and demand has to be equal. So, for at a given market price, so if the market competition prevails and the market forces are there, then market force, if the market can take care of itself, then the ideal thing is that the supply and demand should be in the balance. Okay, so supply equals to demand in the market equilibrium. But the issue is that what actually determines supply, what actually determines demand. So essentially, the supply can be determined by a lot of forces. Supply curve is essentially coming from the marginal cost of the farm of any company. So any company that the additional cost the company incurs for each additional unit of production, that is basically important for a company to drive the supply decision. And similarly for demand, it is important to understand the company's the customer's preferences, the customer's willingness to pay, maximum willingness to pay, and how much, that means the affordability of the consumer. and the relative prices. So those basically drive the demand decision, right? Because demand is coming from the input to maximization, as we know. So essentially, that the things that are affecting the consumer's decision to purchase, the willingness to pay, are basically the price availability of the substitutes, okay, the cross elasticity of the products, the income of the different consumers, how the economy is behaving. So all these things, all these macro variables are effectively affecting each and every micro individual's decision in an economy. So essentially, as you can see that the inflation. So if let's say that that our if the repo rate or reverse repo rate they are going to change, then what will happen to our inflation? What will the prices will increase? Yes, if the prices will increase, then what will happen to consumers' disposable income? So based on the changes in consumers' disposable income, how the overall preference for the product that I am basically going to sell or I'm basically advertising, that how much the demand for that product is going to change. And then also, should I revise the prices that I have already quoted for, considering the fact that the economy is in downturn, or should I continue to quote the same price, or should I increase the price? These decisions are very important. So once you have those decisions, then you have to see that whether these prices, if I decrease the price, whether that price matches the supplier's intention to the supplier's minimum, the supplier's average variable cost and average fixed cost. So those you have to see that the price should be greater than average cost, the total average cost of production, so that you are producing, or maybe the short run average variable cost if we are talking about short run. So those things are basically important indicators that can change the different aspects of the supply and demand. So supply curve based on different elasticities, based on the available number of substitutes or complements for a product, the shape of the demand will change. Demand curve may be flatter, maybe steeper, and as a result of that, where actually I was before the introduction of those close substitutes or close available substitutes, where I was before on the market equilibrium, my position may be changed. So these kind of things are very important to consider.
So, what economic factors should entrepreneurs consider when planning their financial strategy?
See, I think I've already given that answer. So entrepreneurs should consider the macroeconomic factors. I think that is very important. So they have to consider the inflation, the interest rate, the unemployment level. They should consider the current account balance, capital account structure. They should consider the ease of doing business in certain country. They have to consider the FPI level. So if they are thinking that that they need to make certain things very quickly and making some profit out of it, then they have to see that what is the trend of FPI right now. For instance, right now India's FPI trend is not very encouraging, but yes, it's reviving. So these kind of things you have to see. You have to constantly see the how the market is behaving, because once you see the macro picture, then you can understand that how overall market is behaving, and based on that you can understand that whether this is a conducive moment to make an investment or to start up certain business or not. So which kind of business will be suitable for this kind of market? So in order to assess the market condition, you need to see the macroeconomic indicators.
So, sir, how can entrepreneurs use economic forecasting plan for business growth and expansion?
Uh, Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay. So essentially, just hang on. I think that my this thing. Um, yes, yes. Basically, I'm talking over the headphone, so the headphone got disconnected. So essentially, what's happened that the business decision. So when actually you are entrepreneur are thinking about business decision, so the ideas that the entrepreneurs can strive for is that one thing, that what are the close sub-level substitutes, whether the commodity under consideration is basically coming from a monopolistically competitive industry or basically a monopolistic industry, because there are certain differences between them. So can you exercise price discrimination there based on different consumers preferences? So if, say, for example, bulk pricing, like, that if, let's say that I'm talking about the UK, I have seen that there are a lot of people are using the toiletries. So those toiletries are basically the tissue papers. So those things are, that if there are small families, or if when I was doing a PhD, I was a bachelor at that time. So when, if I was saying, if I purchase the toiletries for myself, I will purchase not in a bulk amount, but maybe one roll or two roll, just one packet. But if a big family, family with two kids, and all those things, they are trying to purchase the toiletries, they will purchase in bulk. So those who are purchasing in bulk, you quote a different price, which is much lower compared to the price that a customer will pay for purchasing in a small quantity. So this kind of discrimination is known as second degree price discrimination. So whether actually you can exercise those kind of things in future, whether that can fetch your whatever you have invested, so that can fetch the desired return for you or not. But this again, as I have told, that you have to assess the market condition. So based on the market condition, based on the demand for the product, based on the available substitutes of the product, you have to, based on that elasticity of the product, whether the product is necessary or luxury commodity. So those things are basically under the purview, should be under the purview of an entrepreneur.
So,
Yes.
what are the some effective ways to manage economic risk in a startup environment?
To manage economic risk, see that hedging is an important concept. So what you can do, that you can think of, there are a lot of hedging instruments. So essentially, let's say that oil and gold. So there may be some hedging. If you are thinking about that, investing in gold, then there may be the that crude oil maybe, or petroleum maybe, kind of that hedging instrument. So these are different hedging aspects are there. So as you can see that different companies have, if the companies are more risk averse, they tend to hedge a lot more compared to the companies that are not so risk averse. So essentially, the same kind of things the entrepreneur should follow. The entrepreneur should have a portfolio of options, I would say. So they should not, they can invest in a portfolio of different assets or different investment, different projects. So not in one project, but in multiple variety of projects. So that what happens, that if one or two projects will not turn up for good, then the other projects may fetch you something else out of it. So that's why it is important to have a portfolio and to have a hedging strategy.
So, sir, can you please explain how interest rate and inflation impact long-term financial planning for entrepreneur?
Yes. So essentially, what happens is that government needs to achieve a target rate of inflation. Now, the see that when actually the interest rate, if your economy is in downturn, if your economy is in recession, then essentially the first monetary instrument to target is the interest rate. Why? Because if you target the interest rate, if you reduce the interest rate, then interest rate has a negative relationship with investment. So investment will rise. So when investment will rise, so that will induce the people to basically, that will increase the aggregate income. So that will basically giving a lot of cash in the hand of people, so that people's demand will increase for goods and services. So when people will demand a lot of goods and services given supply, then what happens? Prices will shoot up. So inflation will increase. So there will be a higher rate of inflation. So as interest rate decreases, inflation increases. So that is basically the relationship. There is a negative relationship between inflation and interest rate. And as a result of that, what happens, that when actually the interest rate, when the inflation will, when the prices of goods and services will be up, then which means that the producers, the suppliers, will be willing to produce more and more goods and services. So in order to produce those much of goods and services, they require uh, certain more employment, more job opportunities that should be created. So the relationship between inflation and unemployment is basically, unemployment should decrease up to a certain level. But after, when that after some point of time, when actually the after a certain level of inflation, you know that if your inflation is again increasing and increasing, then what will happen that people will stop purchasing, because that will be out of the affordability rate of the consumers. So the demand for the products will again start to decline. So as a result of that, what happens that those people who are basically needing the jobs, okay, they will be out of jobs, and those people who are basically using that income, using that they will be out of income. So that what will happen that the demand will again go back to decrease, and the economy will be in permanent permanent recessionary state. So that is basically the kind of behavior we expect in a Phillips curve, that relationship between inflation and unemployment. Yes.
Can you highlight your views on about cash flow? Like, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs about managing cash flow in uncertain times?
So essentially, the stream of cash flow is kind of monitored by or kind of governed by different aspects. So essentially, if it is capital account, so capital account, whether it is in surplus or deficit of a country. So if you have to think that, let's say that is a country with current account deficit. So which means that it has a country, it has a framework where actually the capital account is in surplus. So if it is capital account surplus, then that means that essentially the investors are very much interested to invest, to that the lot of foreign cash will be coming to the country, and a lot of investment will be made on certain projects, new ventures, and all those things. So that is basically the way we should understand the aspect of cash flow in the macro context, because a country is different from a company. Now, when actually we are talking about a company's cash flow, so basically the company's cash flow is determined by many factors, not only the financial factors, but also that it is basically depend upon the company's net fixed assets. So how the company's net fixed assets? So net fixed assets basically determine that whether the company use those fixed assets as a collateral in the context of when actually there is a need. So if the company's net fixed assets is higher, so that means that those companies' financial health is better. So which means that the cash flow should be this company is lucrative option. Okay, so if you are thinking about making certain investment for certain project of a company, have a look at their net fixed assets. So this way, basically, you can understand you can just the potential future cash flow and the benefits, the potential future returns.
So, sir, how can entrepreneur conduct effective marketing analysis using economic tools?
Using economic tools, essentially the company can see that. I think that the industrial organization part, that means monopoly, the market imperfection, monopoly, oligopoly, game theory, monopolistic competition, strategic interactions, all these things are very much relevant for an entrepreneur, because you see that whether or not you are investing in certain project, that essentially is a decision that depends on how your competitor is also behaving. So if your competitor thinks that you will going to invest in this project, or if your collaborator thinks that there is a gain from this project, then only your collaborator will be inducing to invest. Now there may be some moral hazard. There may be some deviation or unilateral incentive to deviate for your collaborator. So let's say that you are investing in a project and the project gets done, and the collaborator sees that, well, if I don't invest and my friend invest and the project gets done, then I will get certain amount out of it without me paying a single penny on that project. So these kind of things are basically leading to coordination failure. So you have to understand that how actually coordination failure or the moral hazard can be avoided, and one of the tools is certainly game theory. Second thing is that how actually the new startup companies can basically conduct collusive behavior and enjoy a joint profit. So that also is very much under the purview of an entrepreneur, because they have to identify that in which situation they can potentially sign up for a cartel. So these kind of things are also very important. And then actually, of course, there is the price competition, the quantity competition, the corner and butter competition. These kind of things are useful for an entrepreneur to learn. And there are also the certain degree of monopolistic competition, because when actually the why monopolistic competition? Because the farm, that each farm, they are in an industry. Each of the company is basically producing a differentiated product from its competitor. So that product differentiation that gives certain degree of market power. But the moment actually there are the potential new entry is happening in that industry, that the scope of the residual market size is declining. So effectively, actually, you are moving to the long run average cost curve equals to the on the long run average cost curve. So you are effectively moving towards the zero profit condition, which is basically monopolistically competitive equilibrium. So you need to know all these different stuffs, that when actually what is the long run situation. Long run situation is you are moving on the long run average cost curve, the downward sloping portion of the long run average cost curve, and other portion is that well you are still making a supernormal profit each and every farm. So these kind of things are also very important. The aspect of price discrimination, second degree versus third degree price discrimination, or two-part tariff, these kind of things are very much important for an entrepreneur as well.
So, what role does consumer behavior analysis play in shaping business strategies?
Very much, because consumer behavior is basically forming the basis of that how you can set prices. Okay, so it's not only that not only based on your cost structure, but also based on the consumer's willingness to pay, consumer's affordability for certain products. For that, you need to identify the consumer's preferences under a constrained choice. Okay, so those kind of things are very much important in forming the demand side of the economy. So unless and until you know the demand for each and every product, for you can identify the demand for certain consumers. How can you get that? What are the things that are basically that how actually you can set the prices where actually the consumers will be willing to pay the price that you are desiring, that you are willing to get as well. That will also over and above the minimum willingness to accept by the sellers. So that's why I think both sides, consumers and the producers, both sides are equally important. It is also equally important to understand and recognize and celebrate the presence of differentiated products, the presence of close substitutes of the products, because that determine the elasticity of certain product. How far consumer is willing to pay, that depends on the available substitutes. That depends on the slightly differentiated products as well. So that's why the existence of product differentiation and the existence of close substitutes of the product, all these things are very, very important.
So, sir, how can entrepreneur identify and capitalize on market insufficiencies?
The market inefficiency. I think that the market is largely inefficient because essentially, whenever there is a deviation, whenever there is a brand market power, whenever there are differentiated products, essentially the market is not in efficient format, because had the market been efficient, then the market price would have been prevailed. But it is not the market price no longer for the product. Yes, like let's say that for generic drug, essentially you can see that the government is regulating certain price, but without the presence of regulation, or without the presence of any price ceiling or price floor or anything, I think that the market is largely unregulated. And whenever the market is unregulated and there are presence of product differentiations, brand varieties, and of course, because consumers love variety. So whenever there are presence of the brand varieties, differentiated products, and so on and so forth, I think that that market is no longer efficient, because each and every brand producer will be exerting his or her monopoly power, isn't it? Market power to produce. So they will equate only marginal revenue to marginal cost, not price equals to marginal cost, isn't it?
So, how should entrepreneurs navigate economic policy and regulations that impact their businesses?
That's a very interesting question, because see that economic policy and regulations, see that you have to obey, you have to identify, and you have to celebrate the presence of the rules and regulations. So whenever there are certain regulations, of course the trajectory will change, right? So GST has changed a lot of things, but GST has done some betterment of the imported inputs, because we know that, like, that for imported inputs, now the you don't have to fill the GST multiple times. So the, I mean, fill the tax certificates multiple times. So that is, you have to count one time. So those kind of things are basically, there are pros and cons as well. So again, you have to do a cost benefit analysis. In economics, we are always talking about marginal benefit equals to marginal cost, thinking at the margin. So exactly that is the fundamental principle at the end.
So, sir, what is the importance of understanding taxation policies and regulation and how it impact their businesses?
See that, like, uh, essentially a taxation from the consumer side and the taxation from the seller side is basically having the equivalent impact that we basically teach in class in standard microeconomic theory. But in business also, you have to see and you have to understand that how far the taxation with the taxation on the sellers versus taxation on the buyers are helping the products or disheartening the consumers. Now, essentially the GST, the advent of GST, if you look closely monitor the GST thing, then you will find that the GST basically benefiting the consumers of the for the regular products, like, that who are which are of daily needs. Let's say like toothpaste. Okay, so for toothpaste, the GST is abysmally low. But if you think about the restaurant food, then the GST is much higher. If you are thinking about movie tickets, they are very very costly. Okay, for certain things. So why actually these things are prevailing? So this is precisely because of the elasticity of demand. So those products are basically, like, those products are categorized as a luxury thing. So like if you go for restaurant food, then instead of going for restaurant food, you can cook food at your home, right? Or you can get something else. But the issue is that you know that going to a restaurant is your choice. Similarly, if you are thinking of the movie theater, so you will see that, well, you can watch the same thing on that the different movie apps at home, but or on TV as well. But instead of that, you are choosing to go visit the movie theater. So which means that you are ready to pay the premium price. So it's basically the luxury product. The elasticity of demand is much less. So that's why those kind of things are basically, that highly, the GST is very high on any product. Even if you purchase something, a cup of cold drinks or something, yeah, in a movie theater, in the hall, in a multiplex, you will see that you have to pay a very high price compared to what is available outside. That is the precise reason, because you watch for the you visited the movie theater to watch the movie, and you are paying the different entertainment kind of, the cost of entertainment associated with that. But that is something that is legitimate to pay because it is your choice. You have gone there, isn't it? So that's the thing.
So, how can changes in government policy affect entrepreneurial ventures and how should they prepare for such changes?
Actually, that question is a bit broad, but to be honest, see that when the government policy is changing, the business cycle is changing. So you have to understand that what will happen in the business cycle in the next 5 years or next 4 years or so. So based on that, essentially there are mechanisms, there are models for that. Okay, so based on the past figures, you can do a forecast. There is something in economics in time series literature we know as generalized autoregressive distributed, autoregressive conditional heteroscedasticity model, or autoregressive conditional heteroscedasticity models, arch or arch models, using which you can do the forecasting, okay, of simple GDP series, and you can see that where the economy is moving in the next 5-10 years or so. And based on that, you can have your plan. I think that there are many, most of the in whenever there is a company, the company has company always appoints a data analyst who can do all those jobs using coding and all those things. Their job is to see that what is the figure, and then there is an analyst as well. So the analyst's job is to see that what is the assess the market condition now and the immediate in the short term future and then the long term future. Based on that, you can make your 5 year or 10 year plan that in which direction the economy is moving, isn't it? Cannot hear you. I think you are muted.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. So, sir, what advice do you have for entrepreneur dealing with international trade regulations?
Dealing with international trade regulations, I would say that the entrepreneur should carefully, I think that you should carefully follow the implications of the laws, like rule of law. There is one very interesting aspect. So, rule of law is something that is that states that if that if an exporter's or the product is entirely the product is comprising of certain inputs that are sourced from outside their FTA zone, then you have to pay certain customs duty at the border. And those are the bigger reasons why actually India, after the enactment of the Brexit law in the United Kingdom, between the United Kingdom and the rest of Europe, uh, is losing the automobile market on the European front, because previously Indian company used to basically manufacture the that same used to manufacture some of the parts and components at the automobile hub in London, and then used to then from there it used to be shipped to the rest of the Europe. And because actually previously Europe and UK was part of the common economic territory before the Brexit, so that's why actually they could have taken the leverage of not paying any tax at the European border, at the border between UK and Europe. So now actually what happens that when those companies are moving from UK to Europe to pay this thing, the taxes, then actually they will, to ship from UK to Europe the same kind of automobile after the Brexit, they have to pay the border taxes because of the rule of law. Because the the customs union in the European Union, they will ask that, well, this product, this particular component is made of certain parts and components sourced from India, which is not part of our FTA deal. So that's why it is basically or not FTA deal, I mean the our common economic zone. So as a result of that, you have to pay the certain product taxes on that. So that's why there is a trade diversification that we are seeing right now. And apart from that, there are trade wars that can potentially, there are political turmoils, political relations that can potentially change your trade direction as well. So trade diversion is something that always the entrepreneur should look into. That because of enactment of certain policies, it may happen that some usual there might be some diversion of certain cross-border exchanges as well. So this is something that I think is very useful to look at. And I'm pretty sure that uh, the rule of law, the common economic policy, and all those things are very much relevant for any entrepreneurship, for any entrepreneurs who are thinking of taking a position at an international trade related job.
So, what economic models can entrepreneurs use to measure and improve their impact on the local economy?
I think that it is one of the very useful model that the entrepreneur should look at is basically the CGE, the computable general equilibrium type of framework, that can give the broader picture of the country's different sectors on an aggregated basis. So all the sectors in an economy, the interactions of their prices, the demand, their supply, and how actually the cross-border exchanges across different products and services are happening across all those different micro sectors of the economy. That is happening. That is available in the computable general equilibrium framework, and there is a very nice software to exercise all those things. There are a lot of data that is available on GTAP, Global Trade Analysis Project, that is basically first originated in Purdue University in USA. So that is, I think, some versions of the GTAP are freely available to download, so it doesn't require a subscription necessarily. Yeah.
So, sir, how can entrepreneur use economic incentives to drive innovation with their companies?
economic incentives to drive innovation. Okay, so essentially, see that um, one thing is that to snatch the market share, right? So one innovation is certainly that, well, if I can drive certain, if I can innovate a little bit more, if I can use my effectively use my R&D to innovate a little bit more compared to my peer, then that will basically give me higher market share. And if my company is getting higher market share, if my project is getting more market share, then that means that I will get also higher share, higher market share, or the higher share from out of that profit. So essentially, that is basically I can think of an incentive policy that can promote to use the innovation to do certain to do certain different compared to your peers. What additional you are doing, isn't it? What is your net value addition? That is always important. Otherwise, how you can compete?
So, what role do economic cycles play in entrepreneurial success, and how can businesses adapt to these cycles?
That I think that I have already answered. That if the economy is in downturn, then you have to think about that whether to what prices you should set. So you should revisit your price setting policy. You should revisit the kind of services that people need. People are almost at dire need. Of the time, so need of the time. What are the basically the immediate need for the people during this tough time? So that is something that based on that the entrepreneurs can come up with something. So it is based on the current market demand. It is based on the current market. The people's choices, that what are the things that people are purchasing the most. So let's say that now it is very hot in Delhi, right? So in NCR it is 46, 47. So it is 46, 47 now, and now you should think about coming up with certain kind of umbrella that will give you more you know cold atmosphere if you use that, and all those things, that, or some kind of innovation in the air condition, or some kind of innovation in certain fan that can give you more comfort at home, maybe without the AC or something like that. So again, I'm just talking about that these are the kind of things you can think about, that when an entrepreneur is thinking, they maybe they can, like, that in XLRI in Delhi NCR, I've seen that the last batch they have come up with certain idea of juice. Okay, so they have come up with certain juice that can, certain kind of fruit juice that gives you more comfort during the summer compared to the other part of the other seasons. So essentially, these are the kind of things that you can think about, because these are very relevant at the time. So if you can launch the product during the correct time, then it will be the sale will be skyrocketed, isn't it? So you have to understand the need of the consumer. You have to understand the market condition, and if the economy is in downturn, then of course you cannot think about any designing any sophisticated product that the consumers may not be able to afford, right? So you have to make the correct choices.
How important it is for entrepreneur to understand and participate in the global economy?
I think it's very much important, because now our Indian government's policy is to make in India. So I think entrepreneurs can make a very interesting or important contribution in that make in India project. So why should we increase our reliance on the foreign sourcing when actually we have so much good brains are available who can basically innovate and that do something new.
So, any final piece of advice would you like to give to entrepreneurs about integrating economic principles into their business strategies?
The only thing I would like to advise them is that when they are basically they have learned everything in the class, but now it is the time actually for them to apply some of those knowledges, keeping the mind a little bit broad. Okay, just apply in a generic concept, generic context. Okay, think about that. What is the market condition? What are the general trend of demand of the different products among the people? So what people more like at certain times, because people demand vary over the business cycle. So you have to understand that what are the items or what are the kind of choices consumers are making. Just try to understand the market, study the market well, and then enter the market. That's it. Nothing else.
So thank you for sharing your views. Moving ahead, we would like to express our sincere gratitude to Dr.
Most
Soumyatanu
welcome.
Mukherjee, Associate Professor, XLR at Delhi, for being our guest for today at Conversation with Consultants. Your presence and engagement helped it to make it a success, and thank you for providing insight into your inspirational journey. Further, we would like to thank everyone for joining with us today and hope everyone has gained some insight and knowledge through this event.
Thank you. My pleasure. Bye. Have a nice day.
Looking ahead, we are
Thank
excited
you.
to announce that our next episode of Conversation with Consultant will be held next weekend. We hope to see you all there. Thank you again. We would like to forward to reconnecting with you next week. Do subscribe our YouTube channel and follow us on our social media handles. Stay connected with us and goodbye and great ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.